Good morning, traders and investors. It's Monday, but it's a little different Monday. It's me and Christian Fromhertz going to be running the show today. You guys, I think you know where Dennis is at. Mitch is taking the day off. We got a lot to cover. There's a lot of news over the weekend. So let's get things started. Let's go right now. Monday, pre-market prep.
Coming to you live from downtown Detroit, this is Benzinga's Pre-Market Prep with your hosts, Joel Elconin.
This is a volatile puppy here, isn't it?
And Dennis Dick.
I'm bidding a penny. I'd buy that stock for a penny.
With everything you need to start your trading day.
All right, welcome team. It's a little different setup here this morning. We're going to show my screens, and what they're going to show is the S&P 500 index futures trading down 14 and a half handles, 45.86 and a quarter. I guess the only thing we're worried about is that closing price from Friday, 46.00.75. The buck barely moving. The dollar futures, they're up 11 cents at 103.31. Bonds in the red by almost a half a point, 117 and 24, 30 seconds. Crude, what happened? Wasn't there a cut? Crude down 84 cents to 73.23. Well, gold's down $1.50, but it was up $80. Holy mackerel, what a reversal in gold. Down $1.80, 20, 87.90. Silver got into the 26 handle. Now in the 25 handle, down 30 cents at 25.56. And Bitcoin futures, they're not giving anything back. They're up 8%. That's $3,150 at 42,375. So making his first appearance as a co-host of Pre-Market Prep is none other than the CEO and founder of Tribeca Trade Group, Christian Fromhertz. May we have a round of applause.
Good morning, Joel. How are you? I like how you're sporting your Wolverines shirt today, too. Congratulations. I just wanted to say that first. You got a tough first match, but congratulations to you and your team.
Okay, we try not to digress at the beginning of the show, but I can see you're already. I like the matchup.
Yeah.
I like the matchup because their strength is they're running, got a great quarterback that's very mobile, and our strength is our defense, our defensive line, our defensive backs. I embrace the rivalry. I embrace
Nice.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Embracing the challenge. Okay.
Put
Very
me
good.
out there. I'll hit somebody. They won't get around me if I was out there playing
I like
defensive
it.
back.
Yes.
But anyways,
Yes.
catch me up on the markets. I was out the last couple days, and before you catch us up on the markets, I did have our annual meeting with premarketprep.com. Dennis and I had our annual meeting on Saturday night. I was down south, and so was he. He drove 4 hours over to my place, and we had one heck of a time. Michigan basketball game wasn't so good, but the football game was good. And we laid out our plan for 2024. And I think our listening audience is going to be very excited about what we have planning for 2024. But with that aside, what the hell happened on Friday? Another move closing on the highs for the week.
Yeah, and that's a good time for you guys to kind of catch up and formulate a plan because Friday there was just a huge amount of rotation. And, there's probably about like 4 or 5 different themes that I can kind of, talk about that I thought were kind of interesting. But first of all, it seems like all the attention that the Magnificent Seven names have been getting this year. Those names really kind of saw a bit of rotation, out of. And if you look to see what's going on this morning with S&P futures and Nasdaq futures, they're kind of doing a little bit of the same thing, where you've got the small caps which are outperforming. So like that was one of the themes that I think that you can kind of take away from Friday's action, was that there was more of a rotation into those small caps, which were up. Let's see, how much were the small caps up on Friday? Small caps were up 2.9%. So what was kind of interesting is both the small caps last week and the Dow stocks actually outperformed. The Qs last week were just up a tenth of a percentage point for the week, and all of that outperformance in the small caps for last week just basically happened on Friday. So that was one of the themes. And
Okay, before you
yep,
move on from that,
yep, yep.
I just want to echo that sentiment, and it's continuing this morning, as you said. And you do have some news. You know, you always like to see what the news is, and the news, besides the SPOOs being down, Google postpones launch of groundbreaking next gen AI model Gemini to 2024. You don't want to say that. And then Meta AI chief definitely thinks we're overestimating the potential of AI and quantum computing. So, two of the leaders in AI are coming out here this morning and they're poo pooing AI. So, that has Microsoft in the red by 258. And then just to put a bow on this, I mean, look at the price action in Nvidia here
Yeah.
post earnings. This is not a move that you want to see when a company comes out, gives you the ultimate earnings report, good guidance. I mean, the China thing was in there. Before I left last week, I emphasized the importance of 476. Well, you're $13, $14 away from that now. So I think you have to say in Nvidia, the path of least resistance here post earnings is lower, and that's fitting in with the strength in the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, and it's funny because we talked about that name on towards the end of the day. I think on Tuesday we were talking about Nvidia, and my thought was, hey, let's see if it kind of rests a little bit and people forget about it. Rather than it being talked about, several times a day, we kind of just have been bombarded by that name and what it's been doing and so forth. So I don't mind when these names kind of the attention shifts a little bit,
Hmm.
and so that it's not in the front and center in terms of the headlines. But so your level was what was 476.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
there
well,
were. Yep,
my
yep.
level's 471. So
Okay.
and basically what I tend to do is I just put an alert out there, right? And just basically say, okay, I'll be more interested once it gets there. So I call those alerts like just set it and forget it, right? And I don't need to do anything in Nvidia until I get that alert right around 471. That if it's starting to if the momentum's starting to come back in, great. I got my alert go off, and I'll probably be adding a position there. But if not, I don't need to have it like front and center on my screen for now.
And that's always, I always appreciate that you're always consistent with that, right? Where, I mean, it's still way above the 200 moving day. I mean,
Yeah,
right?
oh,
I mean,
yeah,
it's kind
yeah,
of, yeah, yeah. So, you'd be less inclined to take a position, say, oh, I'm going to lean on that 200 moving day because it's way far down there. If you want, do you want to share your screen on this one? I can stop my
sure.
sharing and
Yeah,
you
look,
can do
let's
an
give it
illustration.
let's give it a
Yeah.
shot. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's do present, share screen, share screen, and then I want to do window. All right, how's that? There we go. Right.
Survey says,
Looks like it's working. Yeah. So
yes.
so
Yep.
this is just a 1 hour chart. Sometimes I use the 1 hour chart, for short term stuff, just to kind of look to see if what the trend is doing. So yeah, 469 is a level that I'm watching, and you could see 471, which is what's called the bottom of the new December value area. So I think that would be the level that I'm watching. And as you mentioned, like, yeah, the 200-day moving average is all the way down here. All I'm basically saying is like it's in like consolidation station for now. And it's also interesting too. I think if you look back for the last quarter, it hasn't gone anywhere. So as much of attention that these names get about the Magnificent Seven and people on in the media are like, oh, it's only these stocks. Well, which is kind of BS, because that's just in a market cap weighted index. There's a lot of other things that are going, but Nvidia, yeah, hasn't gone anywhere for a quarter. So if you've been sitting in this one for the last quarter, you're really not that happy, I would say. So
Okay. It's a streaky stock, right? And
yeah,
it was down 4 days after earnings had one update. Then it was down another 4 days. So it was down 8 and 9. It had a little bit of a rally yesterday. I could tell you one thing, following the stock over the course of times, it's a streaky stock. And once it gets rolling in one direction, it will keep going for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. So
yeah,
just wanted to
it has momentum. Usually right at
both ways.
this moment, it doesn't have the momentum.
Okay, the second theme that you wanted to talk about from Friday was the memesters. Some of the meme stocks, some of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
which is not always a great sign in the market when these stocks are the tension. A lot of people learned that the hard way back in 2021 and 2022. But nevertheless, when these stocks start moving, and I guess what's the top meme stock right now? Carvana, is that the one that you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, so when you look at short interest, I think the short interest, which it surprises me that you still have this going on, but I think the short interest for Carvana is, let's see, wait, you want to make a guess at what you think the short interest is for Carvana?
48%.
Well, yeah, that's more aggressive than I would have. It's 32%, which is
Okay.
still
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, yep. Yep.
32% of the float. So there was a ratings change this morning. And, it's funny because the rating change is like, it's not, somebody didn't put on like a strong buy in the name. I think it's JP Morgan, right? Just put on, they put
Yeah, you mentioned the rating, and they are moving the stock. I can't
to
believe
neutral.
JP to
New-
neutral. Oh, that's a real ringing endorsement.
well, yeah, it's funny how that happens, right? You think, oh, they had an underweight and they're just moving it to neutral. Not a big deal. But you look at what the stock is doing this morning, and I forget the name. If anybody has it from last week, there was another name last week too. Oh, I remember what it is. That another broker did the same thing. They upgraded the name from like an underweight or a sell to a neutral, and the stock rallied.
What was that one? What was that one? Does
Let's see
anybody
if
think?
anybody in the chat know
Oh,
what
I
that was.
bet you our chat knows it. I bet you someone will get it here within. I'm a market timer.
Let's see if I see it. I don't see it. So it was one of the stocks that had a colossal week last week,
Okay.
which
All
was
right.
a
We'll let
firm.
the chat figure it out. Let's go
Yeah,
back. Oh,
it was
shop.
Affirm. Yeah, so I know
Affirm.
you're
Affirm.
yeah.
Affirm.
So Affirm, same thing. Affirm had this big momentum last week, and they were upgraded from to a neutral. And I was wondering, I was like, how's the stock going to handle that? Is that going to be positive news? Because that's not an upgrade to buy, or an overweight, but the stock just continued to rally on that. So that news, so you can kind of like when you look at those types of ratings and you see it's upgraded to neutral, right? The price action will tell you if, and I think with the short interest like that, it's a positive, even though you kind of think, oh geez, they're just upgrading it to a neutral. I think it's going to catch some momentum for the day.
All right, let's go back to my charts here and look
Sure.
at Carvana trading up $2.02. You see the $40 price target. I would have said, hey, clearing 36 and a half, 37 during the regular session. I would have used that as a target, but now you're clearing it. Things are pretty wide open here. The trading right near the pre-market high, room up to 40. Actually, JP Morgan's doing pretty good on the charts. Actually, the next daily high comes in at 39.98. The way I would approach this thing is that, well, yeah, it's up $2. It had a nice day on Friday. If they goose it off the open, let them go with it. If you're buying this off the open, I think you want to get, immediate gratification on that and see it run. But it would be one of those trades where I'd focus on that opening price, because if it opened up, let's say went to 38.72, and I'm just throwing out random numbers here, boom, then it could come back down. So keeping a close eye on the open for Carvana. Affirm did have a nice move. ARFM. Let's take a look at that real quick. Technically,
Are you
uh,
sharing, by the way, Joel?
I tried to. I thought I did. There I
Try again.
go.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. We're
I'm
we're
learning
working
over
through
here.
the.
I had to unshare.
Actually, I think Aaron has controls to do that. But anyways, we're working out the kinks here on the new setup here. 4097. Whoo! That's your next monthly high in a firm. I wonder why I do own a payment stock, and I'm down money on it, and it ain't coming back. And that's Marquetta. I think I should get
Marquetta.
rid of him. Yeah,
Oh,
Marquetta. It's
jeez.
I'm waiting on this thing. I don't know. I think I own this in the 20s. But what other stocks you think fell into that category on Friday? We did the Carvana, Affirm. What else with as far as the memesters? I did take a look. Did GME have any kind of GME?
Well, if you
Uh
look at the one like what I've been watching is the ARC ETF, even though it's not like
okay.
it doesn't classify as your meme stocks, but these are stocks and that will really catch momentum. I call them. I have my own name for the ARC ETF. It's growth at any cost, and there was a couple names in there that really kind of caught fire. One of
Okay.
which reported earnings, which was Path, I believe. Was it Path or was it what was the name that?
That was a big moving path last week. So
Yeah,
down 61 cents today. When you look at Kathy here, I mean, you look at the ARKK. Well, it looks like a nice move, really, on the dailies, the top right chart. But man, you're still kind of licking your wounds here, right? It
yeah.
hasn't even hit a high for the year yet. Let's see. I mean, I'd like to see this thing at 49.63. You are in the 49 handle. That was your August high of 49.83. Well, let's shift gears here a little bit. And before we get to our merger, we always love when stocks are included in the S&P 500. And holy smokes, let's talk about the first three inclusions. Uber, which spiked to $62, now back under 60. Christian, do you have any kind of appetite for these? I mean, people think that they're going in and you got to buy the stock right now and you get that kind of reaction. Right now, the reaction in Uber looks like an overreaction to me. Any comments on Uber?
I mean, Uber's been on such a nice run, and it was rumored for a while that they were going to be the addition to the S&P. And I did hear on Friday afternoon that there might be an announcement after the close, but this one was pretty widely expected, and I think part of that run up. I mean, Uber's has been one of these stocks that have just been on a huge move over the last month. So I think some of that move was anticipating that was going to happen. It seemed like part of that was priced in. And I think you got a nice little follow through move. You do have some other news on Uber this morning, too, which I saw that I thought was interesting. Something to the effect of that if New York food delivery workers win big against Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub with $17.90. I don't know why $17.96. Why don't they just round up to 18? But there is an announcement about minimum hourly pay. So that could be why it's a little bit off those highs of hitting like 61, 62. But I think that initial bounce, what the initial announcement, and I'm probably echoing Dennis a little bit, that says that you can not necessarily fade the move, but I think once once the announcement is made, you get the most of your move on the announcement.
Right, and I would refocus. We're back. We haven't spent much time over 60 really in the stock say, early since 21. So I'm going to look at the pair of highs over $60. They're both in the 61 handle. That would be March of 21, 6102. April of 21, 6150. You did exceed that. I would look that. I wouldn't hold out for the 62s, but I would see if I could get something in the 61 handle. And you're still a buck away from that. So a little bit of a pop. And a lot of times, if they don't give it back that day, a lot of times they like hang out for a couple days and consolidate, and then so we'll keep an eye on Uber.
What's crazy is the run that it's been on, right? I mean, it's been straight up for the last month, but it still hasn't taken out those highs, which you bring up a great point.
Let's take a look at Lyft here as well. Jay mentioned they got a new CEO that had a big move last week, continuation move here. I don't know. It's just the have and have nots in this one, but so far we'll see if Lyft had nice move. Let's see if it can hold those gains from last week. Also, getting added to the S&P 500 Jabil circuit, which has been on a nice run too. That had a pop. Let me see if I do have the 24-hour session here. Here you're a little bit closer to the pre-market high. Pre-market high 121.74. Oh, this is interesting because you must have got hit off earnings, and now you're trying to get the gap area. I think on this one there's a little bit more oversupply.
Yeah.
But as long as it could stay above 120 and hold the gap. But this is an interesting setup. What do you see in JBL?
Yeah, this one was a little bit of a shock, and I actually, it's funny because I own these the three names, right? The Uber, the Jabil, and Builder's First Source, which we'll get to next. But yeah, Jabil last week they came out and unexpectedly brought down their guidance. So you're absolutely right. There's some overhead supply here because the stock got knocked down from 130, printed all the way down to 106, and then they get some good news, and but you could tell that it's not, the stock closed at right around 117. It's up a couple bucks. I would watch that 120 level. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right that now you're battling through that overhead supply, but interesting the timing of the S&P announcement along with the fact that they came out and reduced their guidance last week. So that's kind of a weird timing situation.
And also being added a stock that did have just a major run, Builder Source. That's
Mhm.
trading up $3. That had a nice run after a consolidation period. Off the pre-market high of 144 and change, 144.06. So once again, you're within striking distance of the pre-market high. I only have one spike high in this area, and that came in at 143.97, and that's where you went to in the pre-market. So that's a good number. After if in fact you break above that and come back down below it, I'd be a little bit wary on that one. But those are the three that are going in.
Yeah, and
Now the three that are going out here, and I had that written down on my sheet. The three that are going out, SEE, seal there, and that's kind of flat here. These they're decent support in this one. No one's really making a move yet here. But last week's low is 32.39. Also coming out, Alaska Airlines. We'll skip that one because we're going to go to the merger in a second. And then SEDG, baby, you're going from the big cap to the mid cap. What is that? That's up a buck 56, but that thing's just been so beat up. Why don't you give us your technical take? I mean, I know we're so far below the 200-day maybe average, we're never going to get there. But any technicals on any? Is there any solar you like?
yeah. So there's a couple things that I wanted to mention. First, with the builders, I thought that was really interesting because it did not make a big move like Uber automatically. Like that was the one that everybody was waiting for. But I looked at this. I was like closing down for the day on Friday, and builders, it had no reaction. It closed at 139.28. I actually bought some. I did a little bit of a dentist trade. I bought some at the close because it didn't make any move. And I was like, I'll buy some at 140. I was like, I like the chart. The home building group had a great day on Friday too. So while there was like the meme stock move and the small cap moves, if you look at what the ITB chart did on Friday, Joel, it actually had a really nice move out of consolidation. It has been basically the home builders had been sitting there since the CPI move, which was back I think on the 14th of November, right? They had that big gap up, and then for 2 weeks they basically went sideways, and it's just funny how you can't time every single move in the market. You just kind of have to sit and say, okay, this thing's going sideways for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden it makes on Friday, just another huge move. So Builders First Source belongs to this group, and I really like the move that the home builder has made, and things like Pulte Homes, PHM. So before we get to the deletions and solar, I just wanted to point out the
Okay.
strength in the builders, which I thought was very impressive on Friday.
So that news came out before the close.
The inclusions or the
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it came out after the close, but there just wasn't much of a reaction
Well,
in
you know why? You know
why
why you got any stock at all?
why.
Because Dennis wasn't there.
Yeah, right. He didn't. He wasn't. I beat him. So
Because he would have said the exact same thing. Like,
yeah.
like why is it this? But then sometimes then he'd go, well, I didn't. It wasn't moving, so I thought maybe there was a big seller out there. And then
Yeah.
of course it moves. But yeah, a lot of times that four. I mean, I know not many of us are working from 4 to 8 p.m. on a Friday night. But that's what.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
and as
that's
long
his
as
edge.
and that's the way I kind of think about it. Like if I'm going to buy something, and obviously that's a headline, but I have to kind of like if I like the group too, and I feel like the group has more to go, then I'll get involved too. I don't mind buying things because I'm a little bit different trader than I know. Like Dennis he'll probably short something on the other side of it, but I'll tend to go long on something like that where I think it's like, hey, I like this group. I think it could continue to move after the announcement of the S&P inclusion. So I thought it was a good trade, and I got a little bit long at 140 in that name.
Good
So
for
you want
you, man.
so you want to talk about the solars, huh?
Yeah, let's talk about these
Okay.
solar
Yeah.
stocks.
So it's
Holy mackerel.
so it's kind of interesting because normally the names that get deleted, like they don't seem to. You can correct me if I'm wrong with this reflection here, but it doesn't seem like they go down as much as
As much. I agree.
right. They're kind of just like they kind of go down a little bit, but yeah, the solars. We go back to possibly if we're going to see some more short squeezes. You talk about like one of the worst performing groups, and it's definitely. It's that solar group, and we started to see some names kind of get a little bit of a squeeze last week, like a Sunrun saw some call activity. That's ticker symbol RUN, really got going last week. Another one that saw some option activity, like the momentum type of call buying was Sonova, which is Nova. That name started to kind of catch a little bit. So we're starting to get into this, feels like a little bit of a front run of the January effect, right? Where they start to kind of buy some of
Hmm.
the really unloved names. I'm kind of looking at First Solar. Now I know that's not as big of a momentum, you know, squeeze type play. I don't think the short interest is as large in First Solar as it is in some of the other really beaten up names. But I tend to kind of look and say, let's see what the short interest. It's about 5% for First Solar versus like a SEDG, which has really been beaten up. Let's see what the short interest is there. Yeah, the short interest there is 16%. So it's one of those things that I tend to look at when you start to talk about January effect and possibly a rotation into some of the beaten up names. When you've got
Hmm.
when you what's your thought
You
on
know, these are. I'm looking at these, and I don't know. First Solar seemed to be the one that held up, a lot better than the others. I mean, you got to think about the tax selling. Now, a lot of the institutions and a lot of people, you could talk to different people on the street. A lot of people do their tax selling in October and get an earlier start of that, and that would definitely reflect the move that you had in the solars. So if you and we've been talking about this pretty consistently, if you're looking for that January effect of buying the laggards, and that was also kind of a theme during earnest season. I mean, you did have the big guns that had the big earnings that went up big, but it was like some of these punky stocks that had okay earnings that really went. So I just think there's a point where it's just seller exhaustion. It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
necessarily mean like, we think the solars are the absolute best buy in the world, but, for a short, I mean, you have a lot of intermediate term traders, and also a good point made in the chat by Jay. The bonds.
Yes.
The rates
Yeah.
backing off. A lot of those things are heavily financed. So
Right.
if rates are coming down a little bit, that's good for the housing market. There's now we don't have time to get into the whole rate cut in March. Talk, but it just, lower rates for these bigger ticket items like, deer and
Yeah.
cat. I mean, people are
Absolutely.
going to be financing these things. So we did, okay, let's a merger here, and let's go to the merger Monday, and Hawaiian Air. I mean, no one saw this coming. Look at that chart, man. That thing was sleepy. I think that, with the wildfires, I don't know what the status of people going to Hawaii is now, but I mean, no one, absolutely no one had saw this coming. What a move in Hawaiian Airlines.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's crazy because you go back, and this was what, like a $27, $28 stock. I didn't realize that the stock was under $5. So that's kind of what you should, in my opinion, that's kind of what you should be doing, I guess, if you're looking for an acquisition is, hey, the stock's all, you know, all the way down to $5. Like, I guess why not, right? I mean, if you like the company and you're doing your fundamental analysis about what the company's worth and so forth, you could be getting a nice deal here after, maybe there's some negative sentiment on Hawaii, after that situation that, hey, you're getting the stock at $5, or, well, I guess that's
Hmm.
not the deal price, but that's where it was trading. So I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, airlines are always a tough trade to me, but hey, with the stock around $5, I get it.
Yeah, I was looking at this one. I'm trying to find the details behind it, as far as, well, Deutsche Bank upgraded it. Thank you, Deutsche Bank. But Hawaiian Holdings, trading up. So yeah, let's analyze the ALK.
ALK. So I'm looking for the economics on this deal, but I don't see it right in
I
front of
know,
me.
I know. I was looking for that too.
Yeah, for some reason I don't. I'm trying to just see what the deal is. Anybody have the deal price in here? Let's see. Yeah, for some reason
Hmm.
it's not
Yeah,
updated.
like
Let me see. Let me see 1 second. I can maybe find it here. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
have it. I don't have it. I'll have to track it down. But yeah, I mean, Alaska Airlines too is another one where this has not been this has been the stock price has been going from the left down to the lower right. Stock
Hmm.
was around $70, and I remember for a while both Hawaiian and Alaska were like holding up pretty well a couple years back in terms of the airlines. But yeah, this is another one where I guess it kind of makes sense for them to do something differently because the stock is, hit in the summertime $56, and it's all the way down to 39, is
They're
where
hitting it. I mean, they're hitting the acquire on this one. I would
they
like,
are. Yeah.
yeah, I like to. I don't know. I'd like to see this thing stabilize a little bit. I mean, when you think about it, have you been to Hawaii? You've been to Hawaii before,
I
right?
have been to Hawaii. Yeah, it's been I
Yeah.
want to go back because it's been a number
Uh,
of years, but
it's
yeah.
just such a long trip. But if you think about it, like, geographically, like, I the I we had to go through, like, Seattle, right? And a lot of connecting flights. They do have direct flights to Detroit now, but if you think about it, in they're not going to get, like, Alaska Air and Hawaiian Air. They're not going to cut in, a lot of the U.S. markets, right? The Midwest, or the East. Maybe they can cut into the West. But if you think about it, there's probably, a lot of synergies here, cost savings and whatnot. Let's just take a look at the airline stocks. Did
And it,
catch a
and
did
it,
catch it. Go ahead.
and it's $18. So that's a pretty big premium. So it kind of makes sense
Woo!
that Alaska Airlines is trading down because $18 going
Wow.
from $5 where Hawaiian Air's that's a pretty serious premium.
And there's a pretty serious discount here, if you think. Well, I mean, I know that, is it cash or cash in stock? Because that is, I mean, if it's based on the 18, we'll have to see what the ARBs have to do. But probably corresponding to the AL. It must be some stock for it to be getting hit that much. But let's just take a look at a couple of the other airlines here. Delta's had a nice move. That's up 26 cents off it. Kind of looks like a head and shoulders bottom. I saw, if there's going to be some acquisitions here, Save getting off the mat here. That stock has had a nice move. The one that just can't seem to get out of his own way. Will this finally kickstart Southwest Airlines? This stock is, man, it's had its problems since all those cancellations. Watch out on your bids here, folks. I don't know if we just had an 830. I don't think we had an 830 number here. But we're really starting to lose some steam. We are now making new lows on the pre-market session here at 45.79.50. Just had a quick drop here. We will see. Also,
we don't have anything till 10 o'clock in terms
nothing.
of economics today. At 10, we got factory orders, durable goods, a couple of those data points, but I don't see anything, especially at 8:30 today. So it's good. And no Fed speakers this week. What are you going to do, Joel? There's no Fed speakers. They're in a quiet period until the Fed meeting. So you must be really disappointed about that. Oh, did we lose Joel? Oh, we may have lost Joel. Look at that. Yeah, there's no. By the way, so there are no Fed speakers this week, and so that should also kind of give a little bit of relief. We do have a jobs report on Friday, but we don't have any Fed speakers this week. Let's see. Let's see if we can get these guys back on for a minute. I don't know where Joel went to.
Here
Oh,
I
here he comes.
am.
There he is.
I
Yeah.
hit the wrong refresh button. Sorry about
So
that.
I was just talking about how this week we don't have any Fed speakers, right? And you immediately exited, so I was wondering if it was
Okay, but we do have the jobs number. But what we
yes.
do have this week, and what we do have right now, is Tim Quast. He's the founder of ModernIR Market Structure Edge, joining us here this morning. Aaron, roll the intro. Good morning, Tim. How you doing?
Greetings and a pleasant good morning, good Monday morning to you.
Let me make an introduction. This is Christian Fromhertz. He's the founder and CEO of Tribeca Trade Group, and he is sitting in for me. Dennis is at Disney World, if you must know. Yeah, not quite the Tim Quast sailing the European seas vacation. So that he's here to join us. So good morning to you. And well, the first topic that you wanted to get on is what's the probability the market rises in the year end? Well, we had a decent start to December.
We sure did. Yeah. And Christian, I know you. I mean, I don't think I've met you, but I certainly know your name. So it's good to meet you. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here. Well, welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. So I'm right, because I'm in the data business, I periodically obsess on things such as probabilities. And so this is what got me thinking about this. You two probably know who Jeff Yass is. He's the co-founder of Susquehanna International Group. So, the top one or two, three ranked options market maker, and he's a big fan of probabilities. So he related. This is an old story, but this is his version of it. So I don't know if you remember the show Let's Make a Deal. There's the Wayne Brady version. There's the Monty Hall version. If you're old, like I am, and so. On that show, suppose that you're presented with three doors, and I'm going to answer your question, Joel, about the probabilities. You're presented with three doors. Behind one of them is a Porsche Cayenne, and behind the other two are cans of Spam. And so you pick a door. Let's say you pick door number one. And before we find out whether you picked correctly, the host says, well, show us what's behind door number three. And it's a can of Spam. So what is the probability that you have chosen correctly with door number one? And should you stick with door number one? What do you think?
33%.
Well, there you so you're almost right, Joel. Most people will say, well, it's 50-50. There are two doors left, and I'm going to be right or wrong. But you are much closer. You started with a 30% chance, roughly, 1 out of 3 odds of picking the correct door. And those odds have not changed. They're still 1 out of 3. But the host is never going to show you the door with the cayenne, right? He's only going to show you a door with a can of Spam. Therefore, your odds are 67% of choosing correctly if you shift from door 1 to door 2. You should always switch to door number 2. That's the lesson. That's a lesson on probabilities from Jeff Yass. Now, what's that got to do with whether the market closes up or down? Well, I will use math to illustrate the probability that the market rises or falls into year end. So I'm going to share my screen.
Fantastic.
Bear with me here. It's not the machine that's slow, it's me. Okay, so here's how I think about this. And Christian, we provide a platform called Market Structure Edge that is predicated on math and probabilities. It's market structure, the mechanics of the market, and it looks at supply and demand. So this stuff that looks like some kind of seismic chart is a 3-year look at the price of SPY, a proxy for the S&P 500. The green part of the graph that squiggles along between the red and green lines, that is demand, and it constantly changes. And then down below is supply, which is short volume, not short interest, but the daily trading volume coming from borrowed or manufactured stock. The market is heavily dependent on exemptions to trade through rules for market makers. And so here's where we are. This is what the market has done in the last, call it 3 weeks. And demand is way over the red line. Well, statistically, we can then go look, and of course, past performance is no guarantee of future outcomes. But every time that the market has been at an extended run above the red line, it declines. And the length of time determines the probability of a decline. And so this is not by any stretch the longest. It was actually longer in July. This period was a longer stretch above the red line than it is now. But every time there is a long stretch back to all the way back, but you could take this data all the way back to when we first started looking at it in 2012, and it would be true. So the probability that the market continues to rise is 1 out of 3. There's a 30% probability based on the current math that we have a Santa Claus rally. I realize that everybody believes that we will, and we might. There's a 1 out of 3 chance that we do. But if you look at that math, that the demand in the market has peaked and declines, and it may stay up here for a little bit longer, and supply, which has had a huge deficit, a key reason for why the market has risen, if the supply continues to rise and reverts to 50%, the market will be lower at December 31 than it is now. And there is a 67% probability of that. Now, again, that's just math. We'll see.
Interesting setup for the year-end rally.
So that bottom line that you've got, that kind of is a little bit of an explanation, I guess, of why we're seeing this type of a rally too. You're saying that the supply is very low right now.
Exactly. Comparatively so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's really interesting to go look at what happened in 2021 and when it ended. Right in here, so call it early November, you can see that supply was at 42 and a half, 43%. And in very short order, it rose dramatically. We rose right to January options expirations. At January options expirations, it was 44%. And a month later, it was 48%. And that was the end of the pandemic-fueled bull market. So we've had a mini version of that here. So we had a steep decline, very similar to the end of the pandemic bull market. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, what I would, because nobody really knows. To me, to get back to what happened in 2021, which was a staggering run, we would have to see the supply in the market drop at least 10% from where it is now. Now, again, what are the odds that that occurs? Well, looking back, it's very low. The probability of a 10% pullback in supply after this deficit we've had is 1 out of 10. There's a 10% chance. Look, it could happen. But I look at this and say the market is very vulnerable to something happening that surprises it. And that it's because we are near the end of a short-term run. The market has very short-term cycles, and there are reasons for it. Monthly options expirations, the way that global macroeconomic models work. Most of the money in the market today is running on models. It's not stock pickers. Stock pickers on net are sellers, not buyers. They have more outflows than inflows. So even though CNBC spends all day talking about stock fundamentals, that isn't what drives the market. All you have to do is look at the top 25 holders of any member of the S&P 500, and you will struggle to find a stock picker in them. It's all model driven. Okay, what motivates the models? Well, certainly interest rates do, economic projections do, asset allocation schemes. Are you going to be more or less exposed to equities or fixed income? That's driven in part by age. So all of those things factor in. And you could look at this market and say, well, everybody into S&P 500 rebalances, they just reconstituted. And those rebalances will occur at December options expirations, a quad which is going to be overweight equities, maybe bonds too. My portfolio, which is more skewed because of my age to the managed accounts, not the trading accounts, to bonds, the bonds have crushed it. Bonds have outperformed equities here lately. And are we overweight both? Yes. I've been talking to my advisor saying, maybe we are overweight both elements. Are other people doing that? Well, yeah, I think so. Probably.
So is it still possible, though? I mean, what circumstances?
Sure.
I mean, where's that supply going to come from? Is it the Fed cut? Is that it? Is it everyone knows that rates are going to be cut in March and we just got to pour money into the market? Because I kind of feel the same way. Maybe we had our end of the year rally in November.
Early, right. Well, mathematically, I don't know what factor might affect it. I can say mathematically what has to occur. And this, traders, is what you look for. Because look, you check the data. I check the data every day on the supply and demand side. If supply continues to rise, the run's over. If it reverses course, that's what would have to happen. There's not a high probability of that, but it's not out of the question. And what causes that the supply to change? Well, you have to think about, again, the mechanics of the market. You would suppose that for every buyer, there has to be a seller. Well, then how would the market continue to rise if no one is selling equity positions? BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street alone own, call it 35% of the market. So if BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street aren't selling, how can the market continue to rise? Well, there's an answer to that. The answer is the derivative components: futures, index futures, options, stock, ETF, and index options, and ETFs themselves, which are very elastic. ETFs are created to absorb demand. There is almost never a reduction in the number of shares of ETFs outstanding. And ETFs are created at a rate of over $500 billion a month. So those things then increase the capacity of the market to absorb more money, but it's also sort of inflationary. If those things continue to happen, Joel, we will have a Santa Claus rally.
All right, so
statistically and say it's difficult.
You want to go to some individual stocks and talk about how you're going to decide to trade them long or shorts, or anything popping up in the BZ portfolio as the S&Ps continue to leak here? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. Well, I always look, if there is momentum in the market, there will be momentum components in the momentum portfolio. The momentum portfolio looks for steep supply-demand divergences, and there are 9 in it. That's not a lot, believe it or not. In the Benzinga, I just, these are the ones that stand out to me that have been very effective. And it's been true since the last time I was on, which was back before, I think it was back in mid-November. And so Square was in that portfolio at the time. Natera was in it. Look, I'm not speaking to the quality of these businesses. I'm talking solely about the probability of producing returns. And interestingly, if you single out Square, which I have traded, if there's momentum opportunity, I look for a reasonable gain. What is the probability of a 2% gain or more in 1 to 5 days? That's how I think about it from a short-term trading perspective. That differs from long-term investment. Well, in Square, looking back over the trailing year to date, believe it or not, when it is at 10 and supply falls, this has happened 9 times in Square in 2023. It has risen more than 2% every single time, 100% of the time. Natera is closer to 83%. Affirm around 82%. Coin 89% of the time. So those are very high probabilities of returns, all other things being equal. It depends heavily on broad market sentiment. Is money continuing to come in? Well, the market's at 6.4. It's over the red line, but it means that probably I can make 2% in any of those in 1 to 5 days. And those are high probabilities. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Tim Quast setting things up for us as he always does on Monday. Tim Quast, CEO Market Structure Edge, joining us here on Pre-Market Prep. Doing a great job as always, Tim. We'll dial you up again real soon. Looking forward to following your thesis through the end of the year.
Have a good week, gentlemen. Christian, nice to see you. Joel, thanks for hosting.
Same. Yeah, so that Square, by the way, is kind of interesting. So we've gone on here for quite a bit, and we haven't even talked about the Bitcoin move. Do we want to talk about? So again, there's a lot of over the course of Friday and over the weekend, there's been a lot of moves to talk about. So it's not like we don't have a lot of things to talk about, but the move in Bitcoin, I think we need to address that this is now up 8%. And Square, I'm getting ahead of myself. Stocks like Square, obviously Coinbase have had a nice move. I would have liked to ask him, but I know he has to run, but I would have liked to ask him about Robinhood too, which is another name that could benefit from the crypto move. So starting to kind of look at not starting, but Coinbase has already made a nice move, and some of the other real popular names, Bitcoin miners. But there are those second tier names like a Robinhood, like a Square that you can do some transacting. So those are a couple names that I'm interested. What do you think about this move in Bitcoin?
It's all just predicated a lot on that spot ETF getting a lot of it, getting approved. Also, we talk about relations, to the banks and as an alternative to the banks have been holding up okay. So that thesis has not been working. Bitcoin likes to run a lot on the weekends, and so the rally's there. It's based on that ETF getting approved. What I'm looking at here, and I've been following it for a long time, has been the open interest in the futures. Now, the Bitcoin futures are they're fully margined. With all the other commodity products, you can put up a fraction of what the contract is. So for the Bitcoin futures, you're putting up a lot of money for these contracts, and there's been an enormous jump. And I just look at the open interest here, going back until October, and open interest has just been staggering and been climbing here. So as long as that open interest this is now for the what month contract? This is based on the front month rolling contract here. As long as the open interest, stays strong up here. Actually, I've never seen it as high as 18,000. Well, it's 18,044, but the highest open interest was on November 28th at 18,231. So, and still you start to see some liquidation here, a big down day in it. and the open interest, then people are sticking with their positions. Now, I don't know what the whole status of this ETF thing is, but
Yeah,
yeah, if
that's
yeah,
another angle that's going on right now. Can I share my screen? Can I go
yep,
through?
stop sharing. Go, boom, you.
Let's see. Let me do this. See if I can do this really quick again.
Okay.
Window, and let's bring up this and share. And now I should be sharing. So Bitcoin, what I was kind of watching for the last couple of weeks was, again, I'm kind of looking at this resistance level at 36,505. That this is what we want to see. Like once we're kind of around that resistance level, you want to see like some type of pop, and I think that we've got that. You know, in this in over the weekend, we've got this really strong move. So yeah, I mean, this hut, I'm not sure what's going on with this, but I see that this was a $2 stock and is now so the squeeze is on in this one because this stock's up to $12 this morning. So yeah, you could begin to kind of go through some of these names. CLSK, which is I've heard a lot more about recently. It's another one that's still trading under $10, right? But has momentum. So I'm looking at $9, maybe $11 if the momentum continues. I wanted to go over Hood, and just my
Okay.
little
Yep.
thought with Hood is that really when you look at the weekly chart of Robinhood, right? You're looking at this. I like when a name does this after a big decline where it just goes sideways, where everybody kind of forgets about it. And it's almost like it doesn't, I was kind of looking at this trade for next year, but perhaps you don't have to wait till next year because I think the resistance is all the way up at 1255,
Hmm.
right? And that would be a nice move. The stock's trading up about 30-40 cents. But if this thing could kind of get going, let's see what the short interest is really quick in this thing. Again, I like to look at the short interest because that could really provide like the kindling, to kind of get these names going. Surprisingly, it's only about 5%. So maybe that's why it's not up that much. But the bigger the larger the short interest, the more magnitude of a move when these shorts have to cover. But yeah, I think a move up to $10 is not bad. Let's see, any other tickers that you guys want to go
I
over?
mean, the usual suspects. Mara's trading up a buck 93 at
Oh, there's a reverse split. Yeah, sorry.
oh,
Yeah,
in the hut. Yeah.
there's a
Uh,
reverse split on Hut. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
With these Bitcoin stocks, a lot of time. I mean, obviously, some of them have, performed well, but you're getting a big move in Mara, trading near the pre-market high. What's it? Up near 15 and a half. I see some highs in the lower $15 handle, and then closer up to 16. So, all right, I just want to do. We only have time here for one rating here, and Lululemon catches a downgrade here at Wells Fargo. Are you active? Do you trade upgrades and downgrades much, or
Only
uh,
like only for something like I think the Carvana upgrade is more interesting because of the short interest. Something like the Lulu where they're just down. It sounds like I read the note this morning. They're just downgrading it because of valuation. They think it's gone up. So they're basically, I think they downgraded Lulu and
mhm.
they upgraded Nike. Base Part of their thesis that I read this morning was just that the valuation is too high in Lulu. I get it, but often those types of upgrades downgrades aren't my favorite because they're basically just saying, "Oh wow, the stock's gone up a lot. We're going to downgrade it."
This thing is nowhere near yesterday's low. Or is that a month? Wait, let me get my daily here. Yeah, that's correct. This is nowhere near yesterday's low, which is well, I had a big day on Friday.
Yeah,
Whoa.
huge, huge.
No, holy! I'm thinking I got my monthly chart up here. No, it's a daily.
Wow.
So I mean, if you want, if you just want to shrug this off, I wouldn't till it took out Friday's low. Boom, 447.60, $12 away. We'll see if you find buyers on this one. I can't really, with this kind of move and with the way the market is acting, I kind of put more emphasis on the closing price now of 466.61. That was your close on Friday. That was a high close of the move. So to me, the resistance is much easier to define than the support here in Lululemon. Christian, I don't know what the heck you did to the market here, and I'm going to have to reevaluate having you
First and
come
last
on.
time for a pre-market session for me. Yeah,
Yeah, now I
what have you
got you
got?
on Tuesday. For you guys that don't know, Christian is my Tuesday guest on the closing print every day at 3:30. So if you like his perspectives on the market now before it's open, you can get it again after the trading day is concluded on. No, as we conclude the trading day from 3:30 to 4. So be sure you tune into that. Tomorrow it's T3 Tuesday, so I will be back to guide you guys through the market. Looking at the S&Ps, just like I talked about, Friday's low and Lululemon. That's what I'll be looking for in the S&Ps here. If if the buy the dippers are going to come in here, they will defend Friday's low. That's 10 handles away at 45.6250. Now on the upside now, you got a little resistance building here, right? You've had a 30 handle down move. So what, 15, if we could get back up at the upper 45.80 handle, I expect to sell find some sellers. So I'm going to wrap things up. Yep, easy, Mike. I am going to shift gears right now and go over to Premarket Prep Plus at premarketprep.com and run through some stocks. Christian, thank you so much, and we'll let you get on with your busy day, and we'll be talking to you tomorrow after the close.
A pleasure, guys.
Everyone,
Have a great trading day.
yep, hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning.